My name was Berlin. Not just a name, an identity, a duty. My handler, Captain Jake Reynolds, used to say I walked like I owned the ground beneath my paws. Maybe I did, because wherever Jake stood, that place became my world. He was U.S. Army infantry, battle-hardened and sharp-eyed. I was trained for war, but raised with love. Jake found me when I was barely bigger than his boot, trembling inside a dusty kennel back in Texas. "This one," he said, tapping the glass, "he's got fire." From that day on, I wasn't just a dog. I was his shadow, his shield, his partner. Afghanistan changed everything. The land there smelled different, dry earth, metal, fear. Days blurred into nights and nights into missions. I learned the sound of helicopters before they arrived, the taste of danger before bullets flew. Jake trusted my nose more than any machine. When I stopped, he stopped. When I growled, men listened. We survived ambushes together, long patrols under burning suns, cold nights where Jake's hand rested on my back like an anchor. His laughter was rare, but when it came, it was mine. His pain, his exhaustion, settled into my bones as if it were my own. One winter night, the air itself felt wrong, too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams. We were clearing a narrow village route when it happened. Gunfire erupted from nowhere, sharp, fast, unforgiving. Jake shouted orders. The squad scattered for cover. Tracers sliced the dark sky. "Berlin, down!" I leapt without thinking, slamming into him as rounds cracked overhead. Something burned through my leg. Pain exploded. I yelped, but I didn't move. I stayed pressed against him until the shooting slowed, until breathing felt possible again. Jake's hands shook as he checked me. "You're good, boy. You're good." His voice broke just a little. Later, that same mission, my training screamed louder than fear. There it was, the scent, chemicals, wires, death buried beneath the dirt. I froze. Jake followed my eyes. "IED," he whispered. I lunged forward, barking, forcing him back with my weight. He stumbled. Then, the explosion split the night open. I don't remember the sound, just heat, pressure, darkness. When I came back, Jake was on his knees beside me, hands bloody, eyes wide and wet. "You saved me," he kept saying. "You saved me." They called us heroes after that. Medals, reports, words. But war doesn't end when the plane lands. When we came home, Jake brought something else with him, something invisible, something that didn't smell like explosives, but felt just as deadly. And I was the only one who noticed it coming.
America smelled familiar, but wrong. Grass instead of dust, rain instead of smoke. People smiled more here, yet Jake didn't. His shoulders stayed tight, his eyes always scanning corners that no longer needed watching. At first, everyone said it was normal. He'll adjust. Give it time. Time didn't help. At night, Jake stopped sleeping. His body would jolt awake like a landmine had gone off inside his chest. He'd shout names I didn't recognize, sometimes commands, sometimes apologies. Sweat soaked the sheets. His heart raced like he was still under fire. That's when I learned my new job. I pressed my body against his legs when he shook. I rested my head on his chest so he could feel my breathing, slow and steady. When his hands clawed at nothing, I gave them something real, my fur, my warmth. When the nightmares came, I stayed. People didn't. Friends visited less. Calls went unanswered. Family tried, then pulled back, unsure how to help a man who flinched at slammed doors and fireworks. Jake started sitting alone in the dark, staring at walls like they might speak. But I saw the signs before anyone else. His smell changed. Not fear, something heavier. Hopelessness. the same scent soldiers carried right before stepping into danger, only this time the enemy was inside him. One evening, Jake sat on the edge of the bed, cleaning his service pistol. Slow, careful, too careful. The room was silent, except for the soft click of metal. My ears went up. "Easy, Berlin," he murmured, not looking at me. His voice was calm, but wrong, empty. He lifted the pistol, resting it against his forehead like he was testing the weight. His hand shook. His breathing broke apart. I stepped closer. He didn't notice. The air felt thick, the way it did before an explosion. I whined softly. Nothing. I barked, sharp, loud. Jake flinched and looked at me. For half a second, I saw him, the real him. Then his eyes drifted back to the gun. "I'm tired, boy. So tired." I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I just knew. I launched myself forward. There was a flash, a deafening crack. Pain slammed into my chest like fire tearing through muscle and bone. I hit the floor hard, the world tilting, fading. The gun clattered away. Jake screamed my name. I could hear him, distant, panicked, hands pressing against my chest, warm liquid everywhere. My breathing came fast, shallow, each one harder than the last. "No, no, no, stay with me," he cried. "Please, Berlin, please." Sirens, movement, darkness. As everything slipped away, I felt his forehead pressed to mine, tears soaking into my fur. And for the first time since we came home, Jake was fully awake.
The world returned in fragments. Cold floors, the sharp scent of disinfectant, beeping machines that spoke in rhythms I didn't understand. My body felt heavy, distant, like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. I tried to move, but darkness pulled me back under. They said I was in critical condition. The bullet had passed through my chest, missing my heart by less than an inch. The doctors called it luck. Jake called it a second chance he didn't deserve. For 7 days and 7 nights, he never left. He slept in a chair beside my bed, boots still on, like he was afraid someone might order him back to war. His hands were always on me, sometimes brushing my fur, sometimes gripping my paw like it was the last solid thing left in his life. He talked to me constantly, about Afghanistan, about the men he lost, about the guilt that followed him home like a shadow. He told me things he'd never said out loud, things he'd been carrying alone. "I was ready to quit," he whispered one night, voice breaking. "I didn't think anyone needed me anymore." His tears dropped onto my blanket. "But you did," he said. "You still chose me." Each day, he grew quieter, but steadier. He started eating again, showering, making calls. He spoke to doctors, then to counselors. For the first time, he didn't turn away when they offered help. On the 7th morning, something changed. I surfaced slowly, like swimming up from deep water. Light hurt my eyes, sounds sharpened. I smelled him before I saw him, coffee, soap, and the familiar comfort of home. I opened my eyes. Jake froze. "Berlin?" His voice cracked like thin ice. I shifted my head just enough to look at him. He laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, then collapsed forward, pressing his face into my neck. His shoulders shook as years of pain poured out of him. "You came back! You stayed!" I licked his cheek, weak but determined. The doctors said recovery would take time, scar tissue, therapy, rest. None of that scared him anymore, because Jake was fighting again, not against an enemy with a weapon, but against the darkness that almost won. Months later, we left the city. Noise gave way to open skies. Colorado mountains replaced concrete walls. Jake bought a small farm with more land than he knew what to do with. He started working with other veterans, men and women who carried the same invisible wounds. He built a place where no one had to pretend they were okay. And I was always there, limping at first, scar proud across my chest, watching over him like I always had. But healing, I learned, isn't a straight path. And just when we thought the worst was behind us, life tested us one more time.
The scar on my chest never faded. It stretched from shoulder to ribs, a pale line against my dark fur, proof of a moment that changed everything. Some people looked away when they saw it. Others asked questions. Jake always answered the same way. He saved my life. But the truth was quieter than that. Healing didn't happen overnight. There were days Jake still went silent, staring out at the mountains like they were hiding something from him. Some nights the dreams tried to come back. When they did, I was already there, my head on his knee, my heartbeat steady and real. The farm slowly became something more. Veterans arrived, broken and unsure, just like Jake once had been. Some couldn't sleep, some couldn't talk, some didn't trust anyone. Jake never pushed them. He just listened. He let them work the land, care for animals, feel useful again. They always noticed me. "This is Berlin," Jake would say. "He's the reason this place exists." I followed him everywhere, through fields, into barns, beside campfires where stories were shared under open skies. I watched pain loosen its grip on faces that had forgotten how to smile. I watched Jake become himself again, piece by piece. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the hills, Jake sat beside me on the porch. He rested his hand over my scar, gentle. "I used to think you were protecting me," he said softly, "but you were reminding me I still mattered." I leaned into him the way I always had, because the truth was simple. I didn't jump in front of that bullet because I was brave. I did it because he was my world, and he learned to live, not just survive, because I gave him a reason to stay. People say dogs don't understand sacrifice. They're wrong. We understand loyalty. We understand love, and we understand when someone needs us more than ever. Now, when the wind moves through the fields and the night grows quiet, Jake doesn't fear the silence anymore. He welcomes it. He breathes. He lives. And I stay by his side, always. Not as a hero, but as family. Years passed quietly. The good kind of quiet. My steps slowed, my muzzle turned gray, but my place never changed. Always beside Jake, always watching, always listening. The farm had grown into something bigger than land and fences. It became a refuge, a place where broken soldiers learned how to breathe again. They came carrying ghosts. Some stayed weeks, some stayed months. A few never left. Jake never asked for explanations. He understood silence better than most. He taught them how to work the soil, how to care for animals that didn't judge, how to sit through the hard moments without running. And somehow, they healed each other. Every morning, Jake knelt beside me before the sun fully rose. He'd rest his forehead against mine, the same way he did in Afghanistan, the same way he did in that hospital room. "Still with me, old man?" he'd whisper. Always. One fall afternoon, a young veteran arrived. His hands shook like Jake's once did. His eyes avoided mirrors. He noticed my scar almost immediately. "What happened to him?" he asked. Jake paused. "He reminded me I wasn't done yet," Jake said. That night, the young man slept for the first time in weeks. I watched it all from the porch, breathing slow, heart steady. I didn't chase much anymore, didn't run patrols across the fields, but my presence still mattered. Jake said it was enough that I stayed.
One evening, the air felt heavy again, not with fear, but with knowing. Jake sat beside me longer than usual. His hand trembled slightly as it rested on my back. "You saved me twice," he said, "once in war and once when I forgot how to live." I licked his fingers, tired but content. When my time came, it was peaceful. No sirens, no gunfire, just mountains, wind, and Jake's voice telling me I was a good dog. They buried me under the old oak tree where I used to nap in the shade. Jake built a small marker, nothing fancy, just my name. Berlin. Loyalty is love in action. The shelter still stands. Veterans still come. Stories still get told around fires. And sometimes, when the night is quiet and a wind moves just right through the trees, Jake swears he hears my paws on the porch. Maybe he does, because some bonds don't end. They just change form. And if love could stop a bullet, imagine what it can do after that.